All right, let's talk about those new helmets, Fatty, we got from Laser, and let's discuss the one that both you and I received, and that is the Jackal with Laser's new rotational impact protection system, Kineticore. So the Jackal, there's a lot to like, but tell you what we do here, Fatty. I'll pick one thing I like, and then you pick one thing, all right?
All right.
Okay. For me, it's the visor. Visors are found on most mountain bike helmets, but not all of them allow adjustment. The Laser Jackal visor has 3 distinct positions. Each step has a soft ratchet, just enough to keep the tilt just where you need, but not so hard that it's difficult to reposition on the fly. In low light or tight single track, I like to click it all the way up for maximum vision, and then when I'm cruising a wider trail, I'll tilt it down to keep the sun out of my eyes. So the visor for me.
Yeah, good feature for sure. And I'll say when I first got the helmet, what really caught my attention was the magnetic clasp. It is honestly the easiest clasp I've ever used. I love the way it sort of just self-closes when you get the ends just close to each other in the same general area. And then I can get it off very easily with one hand, once you learn the trick to it. But as I've used the helmet, the thing I've actually come to appreciate more than that is the fitting system on it. Like a lot of helmets, it has a ratcheting wheel in the back to tighten and loosen the band that goes around your head, and that's fine. But the Jackal also has a ratcheting mechanism that lets you adjust that back of the head gripping clasp up and down. So you can get it so it cradles the base of your skull just perfectly, no matter how tall or how untall your head. It is honestly, Hottie, the most comfortable, secure, tailored feeling fit I've ever had with a helmet.
Yeah, visors and chin straps are great, but that's not what makes a great mountain bike helmet or any helmet. Protecting your head in a fall is what makes a great helmet, and Laser has earned a bunch of 5-star ratings from the Virginia Tech Helmet Test Lab, including for the Jackal. To see the Jackal and all of Laser's helmets, it's lasersport.com.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Shimano. Find them at bike.shimano.com. It's Season 5, Episode 15 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I am Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
And I'm Fatty. The Powerline climb, well, it's nearly in sight, but we still have pipeline to manage. And to get there, we're going to be using the very last of the new sections on the course.
And we have back on this show our professor of GI, Denis Faye, who is going to explain to us how we can increase our capacity to take on race fuel. A bigger gas tank is what we want, but like a lot of things Leadville, it doesn't come easy. Thinking about the start of the Leadville Trail 100, Fatty, there's a lot of shivering happening. Some of it due to nerves, most of it due to temperature. The start line is usually around 40 degrees, and then the temp drops as the race drops out of town. Freezing temperatures, not unheard of, as you near the bottom of St. Kevin's.
Yeah, I've seen frost on the grass, so freezing is a real thing. Unless the weather is really wacky, though, you are not going to really need to prepare for a day of riding in freezing temperatures. So you need to have just enough on you at the beginning to survive those first few miles. That's why you will see a lot of arm warmers, long-fingered gloves, some vests as you roll away from the starting line.
Knee warmers? Well, maybe, but only if you run really cold. I've never used them, and good news is whatever accessory you might need, it's available at DNA Cycling.
That's right. In addition to doing custom jerseys and bibs, DNA can complete your kit with warmers, gloves, and a shell if you need that. Hopefully you're not going to need to wear much more on race day, although I would recommend bring everything you need for every kind of condition. It is summer in Colorado, right? I usually wear as little as possible at the start, but that doesn't mean I don't bring everything just in case. And arm warmers, a vest, gloves, that stuff is all really easy to get rid of once you hit the pipeline aid station.
So check out all DNA's accessories at dnacycling.com, and that's the same place you can get started on a custom kit.
Every part of this course kicks you in the teeth.
This is The Course. We are taking you through what you need to do to have the very best possible day on the second Saturday in August, from that shotgun blast to the moment you roll up to the red carpet. And of course, the 100 miles in between. No, mate, that's 105. Don't want to forget about that final 5. Feel free to follow along on my Strava of the course from last year. You will find it on leadville.fm/Strava.
Now, last time on the course, we brought you to mile 68. That's just over 2/3 of the race in terms of distance and effort. You're on one of the short stretches now of pavement here. And up until last year, you'd be making a left turn and heading back up the single track, but not now.
Nope, that is no longer the case. One of the ripple effects of the wave starts is that racers are strung out over more of the course for more of the day, and that means an increased likelihood of outbound and inbound racers being on the single track at the same time, if we were on the single track at the same time, which would not be good for anyone. So Lifetime has gotten around this problem by having inbound racers stay on the road. You're going to go straight instead of turning left for this additional 0.7 of a mile.
Yeah, this workaround also shortens the trip home to Leadville, both in distance and difficulty, which is good unless you really like going uphill on single track late in the day. Because, of course, that private property workaround earlier in the race has added some distance and time to your day. Here you get some of it back. This straight, flat paved road is definitely a more direct line toward pipeline. It's going to help you get that negative split on the second half of your race.
Yeah, and all three of those key words are really your friends: straight, flat, paved. If you are engaged in any kind of race strategy, this should be music to your ears, because it is about a mile-long opportunity for you to work together with your fellow racers. It is not a long section, but you're going to be tired when you get here. You have been going for 68 miles. And every little bit of cooperation that you can find is going to help you and your friends, your racing friends, get to the red carpet that much sooner.
All right. At mile 69, you'll turn left onto some Jeep double track. This is a new section now. Well, we've been on a new section. This is yet another piece of new double track that you probably have not seen yet unless you raced last year or unless you went out and pre-rode the course. It's fast rolling, though definitely dusty. It's been dry in Leadville, which it usually has been. Look for dust here. You'll be climbing steadily for the next 1.5 miles on this section of the course. It's a pretty gentle grade, 2 to 5% most of the time. You're headed straight for pipeline, so you'll be going up about 300 feet or so on this segment. But nothing feels easy anymore this far into the race. I mean, even 2% feels pretty awful. And it's open and exposed, so you really feel the sun on you unless it's raining, which could happen.
One of these years, it is going to be a rainy year. It is going to be a rainy day at Leadville. I mean, we talk about bringing gear when we're in our DNA ad spot. It really is worth noting that, I mean, if you come to Leadville for a week, on one of the afternoons, you're going to be dumped on. We've been lucky, it seems like, for the last decade in terms of having a lot of rainfall on us. I don't think it's been since like the year 2000 that we really got drenched. It's going to happen one of these years. Be ready for it. But that's a little bit of a diversion, but one worth noting. At about mile 70 and a half, you're going to take a sharp right. That is, it's an actual acute sharp angle. It's going to put you back on the traditional road, back toward pipeline, and it's an immediate uphill just for a few hundred feet. You've been here before, and so you're going to recognize it, but it is going to be a little bit of a hard grunt to get up there, and then you are going to be on more or less flat for the rest of the way toward pipeline. So this new section, that pavement, and then that right turn onto the Jeep double track, you've saved about 2/3 of a mile, right? But you've saved even more in time because it is much faster than the equivalent outbound stretch. That is all that single track and the sort of tricky descent. You've skipped all of that. And that is the real unsung hero in this course change.
Mm-hmm. You actually skip Old Clavicle Hill inbound, which is terrific, right? And any skipped hike a bike section on this course gets my foot, especially Clavicle Hill inbound, well, both ways, but inbound in particular when you're really taxed to the max. Now, you've got just 4 miles and change on a fast fire road with a lot of elevation change here, and including some ups and downs that kind of go left and turn back and go right back towards Pipeline, though you're almost always going up or down on this section. Your odds of a headwind are a little better than a tailwind here, unfortunately, and can make the difference of this being a real battle or delivering you to the aid station fast and relatively fresh.
Yeah, Hottie, I mean, we've both done this race multiple times. Have you done this section of the course in both a headwind and with a tailwind?
I think it's always been a headwind for me. I know as you're making that approach to the Pipeline aid, it just seems like you're battling right there, trying to reach that aid station, because inevitably I've had wind in my face there.
I've had it both ways. Maybe it's just selective memory. I remember the headwind a lot better than the tailwind. You know, a tailwind feels like nothing, right? It feels like the world is still and that you just happen to feel very strong today, right? A headwind, boy, it seems almost like it does more to you and your morale than a climb, because you can see a climb, right? But either way, at mile 75, you are at the Pipeline aid station. If you're going to have crew waiting for you, make sure you know where they are going to be, meaning which side of the dirt road, because you were just there. It's going to be lined up on either side of you. If you're looking left and they're on the right, it is possible to miss them. It has happened to me. That's why I say that. Plus, you're going to be exhausted, right? And so it's easy to overlook your crew among the hundreds of other crews who are there. And let's face it, you know, a lot of us racers look alike. We're all wearing helmets and glasses and Lycra and, you know, black shorts. And so it is easy for our crews to not see us. So if everyone, you know, they know what you're wearing and what your bike looks like, and you know what they're wearing, you're not going to have a missed connection. It's not a great time to have a missed connection.
Yeah, for crew members, they just need to look down trail and try to spot people in the distance coming over a little horizon. Actually, you'll see them coming down towards you. So just got to be on the lookout for them there. Fuel up, get everything you need at this spot, and make sure you take enough, because it is a long stretch home, and this is the last time you'll see your crew till you cross the finish line.
Yeah, hopefully you have saved some matches for this final 30 miles, because from here to the finish line, you are going to need every match you've got, and you might want to borrow a few from friends, right? And we're going to be breaking down that final, or we're going to start. We've got miles to go, but we're going to start on this, what I consider the hardest part of the race. From here to the end, it is all tough. Next time on the course.
We had a lot of fun with our tire episode, and especially that survey where we asked how many racers plan to run tire inserts, sealant only, or tubes. And surprisingly, 4 racers out of 250 said they plan to run tubes, like from the start, like on purpose. That's pretty amazing. That's like 4 more than I thought when I posted the survey. Fatty, whether you start the race with tubes in your tires or not, you better have a couple on hand for that race.
And believe it or not, if you need some tubes, you can turn to our partner for tubeless wheel technology, Envy. Envy first and foremost wants to see racers on tubeless, and their mountain bike wheels were among the first to introduce hookless beads for tubeless. And the reason they did that was to help prevent flats. The hookless design means the bead is less likely to cut through a tire in hard impact. So why does Envy have tubes? And they do, because they know that not every situation can be prevented. And so on their website, you can find and purchase tubes.
Yeah, Envy has a lot of great wheel accessories. Their tubes, for instance, come neatly packaged with a wide rubber band around them to keep the tube from unraveling, and a sock for storing that tube. A tube sock, if you will. Their tubes also have a 47 millimeter stem so they can reach through a deeper section rim without the need for an extender.
It is almost like those guys ride bikes. No matter what wheels you run, tubeless or not, we hope you don't get any flats. Maybe knock on wood here. But hope is pretty poor insurance when you're talking about the sharp rocks embedded in the course and high impacts, which can happen. So do the right thing, carry a tube, and make sure you have a few with your race crew.
The Leadville Trail 100 is an eating contest disguised as a bike race, a quote that came from a man who calls himself Fatty. And Fatty, the way we should interpret this idea, this quote, is that When you say eating contest, you're not saying that in terms of that famous 4th of July Coney Island hot dog eating contest. No, you're saying it in terms of can you keep eating even though you may not feel like it?
Yeah, and there's going to come a point when you don't feel like it. But this isn't a contest about eating the most. You are trying to eat the smartest, which means you've made a plan that works for you, that lets you stay fueled for 12 hours or however long you're going to be out there at altitude, at effort. It takes experimentation. It takes practice. And frankly, it takes a lot of self-discipline to do. We talk about fueling, I think, Hadi, every single episode in the show, because if you were to ask me what is the most important piece of advice I could give in surviving the Leadville 100, I would say it is eating.
In this episode, we're going to learn how to keep eating, how to stay in the contest. That's one thing. We're also going to learn how we can expand our capacity to take in calories, how to create a bigger gas tank, if you will. This is something that is rarely discussed, but can be done if we train for it. So for details on all of this, we've invited back Denis Faye. He is a sports nutritionist and has a master's in holistic nutrition. Denis has written for Men's Health, the New York Times, and Outside Magazine, and he's one of us. He's a cyclist who loves the long ride and the dirt. He's finished BWR 3 times, and he's a captain of his cross team. And he's here to tell us how to be our best in the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike eating contest.
Denis Faye, it is great to have you back on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I had so much fun the first time. I was thrilled to death to know you wanted me back.
So I want to start with a story, and you can tell me what I did wrong. I think it was back in 2010. I was drinking Gatorade and eating, I don't even remember what I was eating, but about 3/4 of the way through the Leadville 100, I threw up. I just couldn't. And after that, I was unable to eat again for like the rest of the race. I was miserable. I was nauseous. What did I do wrong?
Well, there's so many things you could have done wrong. Were you eating or drinking something new?
No, I mean, Gatorade was pretty much what I drank in most of my rides, but I think I was drinking more than normal.
Okay, well, there you go. And by the way, drinking your calories is tricky because you can. This is nerd level 12. I apologize, but osmosis is what we're dealing with here, and it's the way particles go across a semi-permeable membrane or your stomach lining. And if there's three things when you drink, you can have hypertonic, hypotonic, or isotonic. And so far, I didn't write these down for today, and I'm pulling big words out of my head, and I'm super proud. I just want everybody in Radioland to know that. So hypertonic means that there's a lot of particles or sugar and electrolytes in your drink. More than your fluid in your body, and that's what Gatorade has. And then hypotonic means that it has less. And the benefits of that is that you absorb it better because your body, because of osmolality, wants to balance out the particles on both sides. So I just touched the mic. Okay, and then there's isotonic, which means it's equal to your the particles in the fluids in your body. At first, everyone thought, "Oh, yay, sugar, Gatorade's great," and then people figured out that hypertonic drinks, not so much, and they can maybe even potentially dehydrate you, and that's why Gatorade still makes the gummy stuff you get in 7-Eleven, but they also make drinks tailored for athletes that are hypotonic. They might be isotonic, I'm not sure, but one of the two. Also, I recommend when someone is out on a big ride, we've all done it. You're riding down to San Diego or something, and you run out of stuff, and you stop at a convenience store, and all they have is Gatorade. Cut it in half with water. It's just a better way to drink it. So it could be that you were down in the Gatorade and you downed too much and your stomach had a hard time absorbing it because of what we were just talking about, and it rejected it. Yeah. So that was a very long answer, but I hope there was something useful in there.
So, Denis, a lot of our a lot of our fans out there, a lot of our listeners out there are training their butts off right now. They're riding hard. They're trying to increase their endurance. They're trying to get better. But we all thought maybe that we had this lid, this ceiling on our calorie capacity. How much can we intake? And a lot of the literature out there and a lot of the message out there says, 90 to 100 grams an hour of carbs is about the maximum that any of us can really take in. But I think you're here to tell us that we can train our guts too. We can increase our capacities. We can expand our fuel tanks.
Potentially. And it's really interesting. Now, I'm going to put a caveat here, right? What they're seeing now is that some elite athletes are able to absorb 120 grams per hour of carbohydrates. Now, yeah, like as you said, the number used to be somewhere between 60 and 90. And honestly, that's probably where most people still stand. You do have to train yourself. But yeah, 120 grams per hour is what we're looking at as the most absorbable. And there's some physiology involved with that. Now, sugars, so all carbs in your body, eventually the way they get absorbed into you is in your intestines via, they go down to sugars and then they go through into your gut. And these really cool little things called transporters are the ones that move them over. And there are different kinds of sugars. I said that, right? That all carbs turn into sugars and then sugars get absorbed. And there are these different transporters that transport different kinds of sugars. And the two important sugars here, there are other sugars, but the two important sugars here for this conversation are glucose, also called dextrose, and fructose. And those two sugars get transported by different transporters. One gets transported glucose, something called a sodium-dependent glucose transporter, and number one. And fructose gets absorbed by a glucose transporter, number 5. Now, personally, because fructose isn't glucose, I would not have named the thing that absorbed fructose a glucose transporter, but I'm not a scientist. So anyway, but what they discovered was that when these athletes consume their sugars where it's a 50-50 split of those two kinds of sugars, because there's two different transporters at work, they can absorb more. Does that make sense? There's more little buddies carrying it across the membrane into the blood. So that's what you have to do. And the goal is to do things, to choose wisely in your supplementation so that you get that split, but also train and just like anything, just like a muscle, whatever. If you're doing this all the time and you're consuming those carbohydrates, your body's going to be like, oh, transporters are useful. I'll make more of them.
Yeah.
So
give us an example of glucose and give us an example of fructose.
Pretty much most things have a little bit of both. Fructose is actually otherwise known as fruit sugar. But fruit sugar also has those in there. So sucrose, you've heard of that, right? That's just common table sugar. That's a split. I believe it's a little more glucose than fructose, but that's a pretty even split of those two sugars. And I mean, agave syrup, that's super high in fructose. The one of these studies, the one that people are currently a little bit thrilled about, comes from, can I say a brand?
Sure.
Okay, Science and Sport.
Yep.
Science and Sport, they make stuff that they believe to have a really solid split of those two. And there's this study that's out right now that people got excited about a little while back. Was from those guys.
Okay, so fructose and glucose is what we want to try and get into us as we're fueling.
Yes.
Anytime we're fueling, but especially in long events, we're trying to make sure we're taking in fructose and glucose. And by making sure that we have both of those going into us, we could increase our capacity, correct, to take in more grams of carbohydrate per hour, right?
Yes.
And by trying to achieve a little higher goal where our ceiling is, at least have been told, is anywhere between 60 and 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour. We've been told that's all that's really humanly possible. The new science is saying, no. 120 is within reach if we train for it. And by getting closer to 120, we are going to reduce our deficit spending.
Yes, exactly. And there are ways to do that. I have 4 tips. Would you like my 4 tips?
4 tips, yeah.
Yes. All right. So tip number 1 is have a feeding plan. Okay. So before you do anything, figure out. I mean, think about it. Like if you have a training plan, right? You have a fitness plan for this. So you should also have an eating plan. You should know what you're going to eat leading up to the event, and you should know what you're going to eat during the event, because then you can practice that and you can adjust it and optimize it. So have a plan for both pre-event eating and during event eating, right? Mm-hmm. The second thing, and also that will. These next 3 tips, having the plan will kind of help you with the next 3 tips because you'll have like a framework to use the advice I'm giving you. 2 is train on a full stomach, like sandbag yourself. And I do this, and it was revelatory for me. I did it more for running actually, but I would get up, eat breakfast, and then go for my run. And it's gross, but I adapted really quick. I got used to it, and I was able to handle it. So, and I think that's beneficial for a few reasons. Obviously, but it makes your gut tougher because we're talking about maximum absorption. We're also talking about Fatty's problem, which is minimal absorption because everything's on the side of the road and not in your stomach anymore because you went too hard. So that will help. That will help do that. And you might even have a day where you think you're overfeeding, and then you have a really powerful day and you realize that you ate something that really worked for you. So that's one thing. That's the second thing. The third thing is overdo your carbs while training. So again, Fatty, you didn't make a mistake. You did a good thing in that. Well, unfortunately, it was a race, so that's bad. But you go out and you train and you do your carbs and you learn your limits. So you know, if you have too much, you feel gross. For me, when I get too carby, when I get home or maybe the next morning, there's another race, to the bathroom that it comes up. That then you kind of know where that comes, and also you're going to be adapting and getting stronger and able to take in more stuff. You're also going to be training those little transporters I talked about. You're increasing them by doing that, right? Oh, and I forgot to mention something about training with a full stomach. A really key part of the digestion is you have all your food, it goes in your stomach, and the hydrochloric acid, burns it up, and there's some digestion that happens. But then it goes, there's something called gastric emptying. I love saying that, gastric emptying. And it goes down into your intestines. And that is where carbohydrates are absorbed, right? That's where you want the stuff to go. And if you, and training with a full stomach, it trains your body to be able to get to that phase faster and more efficiently. So that's a good thing to do. And on that note, let's hop over into actually during your ride, and this may have been another one of Hadi's problems, is that the harder you go, like in the moment, the less your body likes to gastric empty. I don't know what would gastrically empty. Mm-hmm. And there's generally the science says that it really starts slowing down at about 74% of VO2 max, if we want to get fancy about it. But so that's why, you're on a ride and you see a big hill in front of you and you're like, I want to juice up for that hill. And then you eat a bunch of shot blocks or whatever. And then you hit the hill and your stomach's like, I'm not digesting anything. And then you throw up. So don't do that. But coming back to the training with a full stomach, that will help make it easier. It'll make your stomach tougher and able to digest in those situations or gastrically empty in those situations. Yeah, okay. You follow me? Mm-hmm. I'm going in a logic loop there. Mm-hmm. Finally, one more. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tip 4, and this is super crucial, simulate your race conditions and race feeding plan, right? And yes, eat exactly the foods you think you're going to eat, but get yourself a mock Leadville. I understand that you can't totally do that, right? But if you can simulate the heat and your hydration levels, if you can simulate, because these all the big ones are heat, dehydration, and fiber and fat are the things that are going to impact how you absorb and eat the most. And if you can simulate those conditions in your training, you're going to have a better chance on race day because you can adapt, and also your body will be adapting, and also you will be learning what you can tolerate and not tolerate and adjusting.
Is another factor in that list you gave us duration? I'm wondering, because I can tolerate it. To me, it feels like anything for a while. But what I can tolerate on hour 5 is way different than what I can tolerate in hour 2.
Yes, excellent point, and you are right. Also duration. So, if you can go out for some long ones, long, tough ones, I think that's a great idea. And yeah, because also, we talked about the ticking clock of burning more than you absorb, kind of walking up to that precipice or pedaling up to that precipice, as it were. It is important to do to understand that and know it and kind of live in the agony of the bunk.
Denis, I'd love to drill into each of these 4 topics if we can. The first one, having a feeding plan. I think that is great, but I have in my mind a blank sheet of paper and what the framework for that plan might be. How can I start to make that plan?
What I do is, sit down, say, okay, I'm training today. This is how long I'm going to be training. And based on the math I just said, the numbers I just said, this is how much I need. And then I write down, it depends on what you like. I feed about every 45 minutes. That seems to work well for me. Some people go like more of a slow drip situation. There's science behind this gastric emptying thing, where if you get a bunch, it drops down. But some people like to do it more in a slow drip. It's kind of what works for you. But have that carbohydrate goal for each set amount of time, and there you go. And fill that with things you like.
Next question then, when you say train with a full stomach, that is, my head just about exploded when you said that, because that is so close to the opposite of what I always do. In the show, we've talked about, eat breakfast an hour or more before you do this ride, so you don't start with a full stomach. But you were saying, to train with a full stomach. Does that mean race with a full stomach?
No, not race. Danger.
Okay.
And also not every time.
Okay.
This is like just as you don't go out every time and do hard intervals, there'd be nothing left of your legs.
And
right?
how full? Yeah.
Well, don't eat to be. I'm a big. There's a. I can't remember the word off the top of my head, but there's a Japanese concept. It's a really cool word. Maybe we'll dub it in. But it's eat till you're 80% full.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. Eat till you're satisfied, but not till you're like, So, eat in a healthy way, but have your meal. Have the meal that you want to eat, and then go train. Normally, if you're working for performance, you would want to have that meal about 4 hours before maybe, and you just want a little light carby snack right before. But this is training. This is trying to do this different thing. So no more than once a week. Try that. And when I do it, when I was doing it, it was I'd probably have like a bowl of granola and yogurt, and maybe throw a bunch of fruit in there and a coffee. And I felt like this is a good Sunday, going to go read the newspaper now. But instead, I'd go out and run 12 miles, and it felt bad. Felt bad at first, but I just found after I'd done it for a while, it just was no big deal.
Okay, so basically, run or ride after having brunch is kind of what I'm hearing.
There you go. Yeah, but common sense. Don't go to the all-you-can-eat buffet and fill up on bacon and then that's ridiculous. But a sensible but solid meal.
Mm-hmm. And the bacon actually triggers the question. It's I'm wondering, in general, I have reduced my carbs, just trying to keep my weight under control. And that helps in general. But you are saying that I should overdo carbs while training. I'm wondering, is there a tension here? Is it okay for me to be low carb most of the time, but then really hit the carbs when I'm training, or what? Am I doing things completely wrong here?
I mean, if that's, you do you, and we can have a whole show about keto or whatever. But those transporters I was talking about, that actually decreases the amount of glucose transporters you have, having a low-carb lifestyle, because your body doesn't need them, so it doesn't need to produce them. So you're actually sandbagging yourself during your race because you're not going to hit that 120 grams, even if you have a perfect balance of dextrose, glucose, and fructose.
Let's go to the tip for then simulate race conditions and your race feeding plan. So over the years, I've developed a feeding plan that is pretty successful for me. It has been a long time since I had that throw up incident. And in a way, that was kind of an aha moment. And I reevaluated. And since then, I've, got through every Leadville with good power and still feeling pretty good. Sometimes there's no manifestation, throwing up, diarrhea, but just you feel disinclined to eat. That is a real common thing, at least for me, when I've been on the bike for a while and just the thought of eating makes me feel, bad. I don't want to. I don't want to drink. What do I do?
That's a thing. It's called flavor fatigue. It's a real thing. And like the pros have it, everyone has it. So what I do to help is pay attention to the things you really like. And in those situations, if you're like going and okay, so there's a couple ways of doing this. One is when you're in that situation and you're like, food is stupid, think about something that you could tolerate in the moment and bring that next time. You also, like if you're doing a big, like an event and they have an assortment of things at the tables, like pay attention to what you eat that tastes okay and what doesn't. By the way, I have a good story. My first Belgian waffle race, I was cruising along and it was hard. It beat the tar out of me. And every station they had Coca-Cola because that's what the pros drink. And I don't drink a lot of soda in my life. Like it was probably at that point, 100 miles into the race, I had consumed more Coca-Cola than the last 10 years of my life put together. And my friend Kevin hands me a can of Coke, and I just crush it and I throw in there going, no more effing Coke. I wouldn't talk to him for another hour.
I was checking some of the diets of some of the folks in Unbound. Keegan Swenson said he actually got to 120 grams an hour, and he was actually shooting for something higher, but he said he had trained his gut to do this. And so this circles back to what we talked about earlier, that, our natural God-given capacity is probably not in the 120 gram range, but we can train to get there provided we go out and do it and try it and work on it. Keegan said, though, as far as intake, 99% of those calories came from gels. Alex Wild said on the day for Unbound, and these guys are coming in under 10 hours. Who knows if they'd have been out there longer. He did 35 gels. Now, both of them said, look, we're trained garbage disposals. We have trained our guts to put up with this madness. Like 35 gels in 3 weeks is madness, right? But on a day, that's crazy. What I want to ask you is, can we train our guts to be garbage disposals?
Well, they did. I don't.
They're
maybe,
pros.
Well, yeah, okay. But I mean, okay. I'm sure that the human digestive system, there's some people that have more apt human digestive systems than other humans, like people have legs or hearts or whatever. But I mean, you can do it. I guess in my mind, it's a question of, do you want to do it? Do you? I mean, there's a lot of grossness, and I know I mentioned the squirts earlier, but I guarantee you, these guys, to get to that point, there are a lot of unpleasant bathroom visits involved. So do you want that?
Right.
And if it's that important to you, then yes, I think you can train to that. But it's also possible to go out and have an awesome Leadville with some of that, and then maybe some other foods that you want to eat, so that you present. I mean, and I'm sure, I guess I can't speak for these guys. It's kind of weird because they might actually be listening, but a mile, whatever, and they're just like, I don't want to have this, and they're just shoving it in, and it just tastes like they're just eating like cigarette butts, but they're pros, So it's just how pro do you need to be? Is
Right.
And then you find that level and do it.
Well, and I bring this up because there are countless stories at Leadville, like fatties, people throwing up, unable to keep eating, and you ask them, well, what did you eat all day? And they say, well, I was on gels all day.
Yeah, but I bet you they didn't do that. I bet you that they did that for the first time then.
Right.
And they didn't go and teach their bodies to put up with that. Again, like I bounce back and forth between running and cycling, and when I'm running, then it's all about gels and stuff. It's pretty gross because it took me a while to get to there, and I still don't love it. That's why I'm doing more trail running, because it seems for some reason that, you can eat more solid foods. It's a bit of the culture, a bit more. And also because you don't go, when you're road running, you just go the whole time. Trail running, there's a bit more, it's more like cycling.
Yeah, so if you're not a natural garbage disposal, I happen to be one. I can actually, whatever, will work with me. But still, I never adopted a strategy like that. But it seems like, and I've heard this repeated before, if you're not a natural garbage disposal, a better strategy might be to, when you start the race, instead of having your top tube filled with a row of gels, start the race, and for as long as you can, eat sandwich bites, or if you can do a bar or stuff like that earlier on in your race, and save all that garbage. And no offense to Goo and all the great gel companies out there, but it really is a gut bomb when you're dropping those things in your stomach. Save all that stuff for later in the day when you really need it, when feeding and unwrapping things have become a pain in the butt, or when you're on a section of a trail where doing a wrapper or reaching for solid food is really not reasonable. Save the chews and gels for those more crucial times. I mean, does that seems to be a more reasonable strategy?
I think that's a good strategy. I think it's a great strategy. I think you need to add a layer to it, though, because from across the start line, you need to be focusing that ticking clock of your glycogen levels has begun, right? So if you want that, your blood sugar and your glycogen, the amount of juice you have inside you. So even though you are eating what you propose, like what you want to eat and all that, check the carbs. Make sure you're getting enough fuel, because that's the biggest mistake you can make in a big ride is, we all think we're like, because honestly, if you have full glycogen, you're like, I can go an hour and a half. So people go out and they don't feed for the first hour and a half because I got juice. But you should have started the moment you go, because you're continually refilling your tanks. So yes, do that, but be mindful of how much you're eating and keep that volume up so that you're eating for the future. You're always, when you're doing a hard event, you're not eating for the moment. When you're eating for the moment, you're doomed. When you bonk and you're just eating to get there, you're always eating for half an hour from now.
So that's another great point, I guess, as you were talking about your strategy or rather, how to train your gut. You talked about going out on a full stomach, like start your day on a full stomach. And these gut training days aren't every training day, right? We're talking about doing
once, like I said, once a week,
right? Do this. Don't be going out on every training ride and training your gut with a full gut. So,
and by the way, if you do, I would say about 5 to 10 weeks taking this pretty seriously is a good. You can do more if you want,
right.
But if you're looking, some people like time frames. That's my time frame.
Perfect, yeah, because a year round of doing this would drive you probably up the wall, right? So you go out on a full stomach. Then as you go out and start riding, I think a lot of us on training rides get a little lazy. We don't start eating right away, right? We go out on our training rides, and 2 hours in, we start doing a bar. You're saying no, right away. Act like it's like you want to perform, like eat like you want to perform. So you're out on your full stomach or semi-full stomach by this point. Start doing your gel or your bars or whatever it is that first round of food is going to be.
Yes.
And do it. I mean, do it like you're going to race it, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Denis Faye, we can train our guts. That's the news here, right?
Yes.
We can train to have bigger gas tanks, and it's something it's something that's worthy of our time.
It's bigger gas tanks and the ability not to throw up. No, that's important.
Yeah, it is important. As Fatty will tell you.
And not to feel like crap. I mean, there's a study recently, I think it was in the British Journal of Nutrition, and they polled a whole bunch of ultra runners, like they do 100-mile races, and 47% of them complained about gut issues. It's a thing.
It is a thing, yeah.
And that's like feeling bad, not just bonking.
Yeah.
So you can train to you're going to feel like crap when you do the Leadville 100, no matter what, but you can feel a little bit less like crap if you train your gut.
My takeaway from all this, Hadi, is we need to take some of our training days and make them like race day. Eat a good meal, your breakfast, prior to the ride. Head out pretty nearly full, and then get on top of your nutrition during your ride as if you were trying to get out to Columbine and then back up to 6th and Harrison. And over a series of training rides, you've got to gradually build up the amount of calories you are taking in per hour. The ceiling is probably 120 grams of carbs per hour, but worry less about the number and more about improving what your gas tank can take in, what it can hold.
Absolutely. Thanks again to Denis. He'll be back in a future episode to talk how we eat the week of the race. If you want more info from Denis, check out his new personal best website at Denis Faye, that's DenisFaye.substack.com.
So all this talk about training the gut seems like a good time to talk about the feed. And in fact, on the feed's website, on their insider page, they have an article about taking in more calories during exercise. One of their athletes said they stepped up their feeds to 4 times per hour and found their sessions were much more productive.
Now, that's a very aggressive strategy and one you shouldn't start with right away. But if you're looking to take up your calorie intake, then the feed is a great place to start. I mean, you're going to need more calories, so you need to stock up. You need more food around.
Yep, you do. And one of the things you're going to need to do is count how much you are taking in. And this can be difficult when you are mixing and matching brands and food types. I mean, I can't tell you off the top of my head how many calories total I've taken in after a day's worth of eating. 3 Cliff Bars, 5 gels, pack of chews, who knows how much that is.
Yeah, that's some pretty rough math that probably needs a calculator to figure out. So to keep the math simple, maybe try fueling with Never Second products. Their drink mixes and gels each have 30 grams of carbs. So like 1 bottle and 1 gel is a total of 60 grams of carbs or 240 calories. That's a good per hour starting point, and then see if you can expand from there. Never Second also has that fructose glucose blend that Denis talked about, so great for fuel delivery.
Yeah, and it has a nice mild flavor, which makes it easy on the palate as you pile on the calories hour after hour. As the day goes on, all you do, count the empty packets, figure out whether you've kept up.
Never Second is available at the feed, where you can claim your $80 in annual credit at thefeed.com/Leadville. Register your email and verify your phone number, then spend your first feed credit of $20 right away.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap this episode. Hadi and I are on social media. You can find me on Twitter at FatCyclist. Hadi is into Instagram. You can find him at Michael Hodden. And of course, we're on the Facebook Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Participants page. Wow, what a mouthful. We've been saying that for 5 years. They need to shorten their name. If you want to have a conversation, much shorter, easier name, join our Slack channel. You'll find a link to it over at leadville.fm/Slack.
If you like this show, go to wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating and write a review. To see all the ways you can find the show, it's leadville.fm. And finally, telling your friends about our little show is the ultimate compliment. Even if they do not race the Leadville 100, tell them about the show. They will thank you, and we will too.
And then they'll want to do this race. So, good for you. You're passing it on. Good luck in your riding, your racing, your recovery, and of course in your eating. Thank you for listening, and we are going to see you very soon at the starting line.